Tension on deck.
Hey, good evening, Ron. How you doing? Busy week, right? In America, across the board. I think we got a lot of good stuff to talk about. But how you doing today?
Doing okay. Doing okay. I know you're back in sunny Florida, but you got a little storm brewing there. Well, we have sunshine here today.
I left it there for you.
We appreciate that. We appreciate that. Yeah, busy week throughout the country, and unfortunately, coming to a neighborhood near me here in New York. So we're going to be talking about that today. We'll be talking about something else that came up in the news this week. It was spoken about earlier on earlier episodes and across the platform about that vehicle pursuit where the officers pursued the stolen vehicle from the Bronx into Harlem, and then the perpetrator had crashed and he succumbed to his injuries and died. So a video actually came out about that, and the city put an article up about it. So we're going to talk about that. And then at 5:30, we're going to have a special guest appearance from Jim Walden, who's an independent candidate for New York City mayor. And normally we don't do politics, right? We're not, doing endorsements with politics or anything like that. But on Monday, he made a very important announcement on the finest Unfiltered about a new agency that he wants to put into place if he's elected mayor. Also, that he's generously proposed to anybody that becomes mayor for a citywide Department of Public Integrity. And we're going to bring him on at 5:30 to discuss that plan, because that's very involved with the NYPD. It's about public safety and integrity, and a lot of the things that have been going on with the NYPD, with CCRB, with the Internal Affairs and Department of Investigation, all being kind of wound into one department. So that's something very interesting. And then obviously we're going to talk about the riots and the civil unrest that began out in LA after the anti-ICE protests and is now spread. Right now it's in where Chicago, Texas, Philadelphia, and started 2 days ago here in New York. So we'll talk about that. But we want to get right into the first.
Yeah, we might as well jump right into that vehicle pursuit, right?
Yeah. So this is the vehicle as it exits the FDR Drive, and he comes high rate of speed, doesn't navigate the turn. As you can see, crashes into the edge of the building down there, and you can see right away the flames at the front of the vehicle. And then here comes the RMP from the 5-0 precinct in the Bronx. They appear to come to just about a full stop right there while the car is on fire just to their right. They hang a left. They return to command, and they go into tour. Don't report it. Now they were suspended. It was found out afterwards, and they were suspended. And they, from what I read in the article, they remain suspended with pay. For people that aren't aware, the NYPD, according to the contract, you're only allowed to be suspended without pay for 30 days. And then you have to be restored to duty. And then, you can be resuspended, but it's with pay. So they have to report to Internal Affairs every day, while they're out on suspension with pay. What are your thoughts?
Well, unfortunately, I think it's a very, very bad situation, right? So obviously, I mean, you talk about administratively, right? So they didn't put it over the radio. That could have afforded the opportunity for a patrol supervisor, platoon commander, a duty captain to terminate it, but they didn't do that. They have to realize that they have the AVL, right? The auto vehicle tracking, so everybody knows where you are. I mean, there's not going to be any type of hiding it, and obviously there's video everywhere. And then than to watch a car crash like that and know that there's a driver in there and literally make the left and go the opposite direction and not even put anything over the radio.
Yeah.
It's appalling. I don't understand it. I don't understand anybody that puts your hand up and says that you're sworn to protect the people of the city of New York, support the Constitution of the United States and the city, and you allow that to happen. What I think about is that so often do chiefs or sometimes les rank have children on the job, right, that aren't the best. And what would have had those cops would have felt? I mean, they should feel terrible as it is, but what would they have felt if that was an MOS's son or daughter that was driving that car and they literally left and went the other way? I mean, it's just I mean, I don't understand it. I don't know how you could swear an oath and then just completely have disregard for it. It's sad. And they should, in my final opinion, I think they should be. I'm not a big termination guy, but I think they should be terminated. And they're luckily if they don't go to jail,
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Think about it. What if it was MOS's kid or anything? It doesn't matter who it is.
No, that's what I
we were
meant.
always
Yeah.
taught. We were always taught, treat everybody as if they were your family, right? And somebody says it on here. Doesn't matter if they're a perp. You know what I'm saying? Once you're at that stage, it's your duty to render aid, and that's where I think they're going to have the biggest problem, right? Yeah, administratively, they never put the pursuit over. So administratively and tactically, they were horrible from the very beginning. And administratively and tactically, they were horrible from the very beginning, right? And the ramifications from that would have been serious from the job, right?
Not termination, right? Though, but yeah,
not termination, but they didn't put over a
Yeah.
vehicle pursuit, right? They didn't put over the vehicle pursuit, so nobody knew where they were, unless the supervisor was looking at their AVL, like you said, which is the job's GPS, and they didn't put it over, right? So that's a problem in and of itself. Tactically, if that car stops and they get engaged in something, nobody knows where they were, so there's no help on the way until they're able to call for help, if they're able to call for help. If they get into an RMP accident, nobody knows where they are.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking for them right away until somebody else calls 911, right? Just like this. In the article, it said it took 20 minutes for the fire department to get there because they waited. Somebody else had called 911 when they found that vehicle. So, you have that. That was bad enough. And we spoke about that on the other shows. But now that we see that they pulled down and they were right there, right next to this car that's on fire, there's no way that they didn't see that. Okay? They weren't able, Patrick Henry is saying they weren't able to see the crashed vehicle after they got off, after they exited the parkway. Looking at that video, I say the evidence is overwhelmingly against that statement.
Yeah, the car's on fire, right? So they don't see the fire?
Car's on fire, and it's crashed right to the right of the exit ramp, right? As soon as they flew off the exit ramp, they crashed into the building, and the car flips and goes like sideways. When they got to the end of the exit ramp, they came to almost a complete stop. And what are they doing? Why did they come to a complete stop? Because they're looking which way did the car go? Because they still want to chase after it. That's why they got off there, right? They're about less than 10 seconds behind them. So when they come down, right, the car is to the right. You can see the flame is still going. The light from the flame on the right side of that intersection. When they come to the end of that ramp, what are they doing? They're looking left and right. Which way did the car go? Don't tell. I'm sorry. I don't like to speculate. I don't like to make assumptions. I don't see how it's physically possible they don't see that car crashed, even if it wasn't on fire, and it was on fire. So now they make that fight or flight moment, which, really, as the police, it's supposed to kick in another way, right? We have a duty.
Yeah.
We have a duty to act, right? So at this point, it goes from being an administrative issue to a possible criminal issue.
Right.
I don't even think it's administrative at this point. And I know that in the article, it also said that the New York State Attorney General has determined that the officers did not cause the death of that man in the car. Okay.
No, I'm probably.
He chose to flee. He chose to go in excessive rate of speed. He caused his own accident and crashed. At what point did he die, though? Could they have rendered aid? Could they have pulled up and either gotten him out of the car, used the fire extinguisher in the RMP to put out the fire on the engine, or possibly, I don't know, got him out? If not, if he was pinned inside, call for ESU, call for the fire department, get help there before the thing gets fully engulfed in flames, as you see in the picture from the article, and the thing is a burnt shell. Well, it was a burnt shell with a human being inside. And at what point did that human being pass away? So they don't render aid. They don't, take their due diligence to try to render aid. So, we talk about criminality. What crimes? I mean, because I know the New York District Attorney is looking for it, is looking into it, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, what do you think? Manslaughter?
No, I thought. Well, I thought criminally negligent homicide, because it's close. It's still touchy. It's not perfect, because, like we said earlier, they didn't cause his death, but is it the perceived knowledge of what could happen, and is it when the risk is of such a nature and degree that the failure to perceive it constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of care that a reasonable person would observe in that situation? So does it mean that they should have, I mean, like you said just now, they should have stopped and provided care, right? So, I mean, it touches on it a little bit. I'm sure that now think about that. They're in Manhattan. It's a different district attorney who's not very favorable to police officers. So I could see that, them looking for something to some sort of law that they could drum up or fill in, we shoot somebody. What's the first thing they tell us to do? Provide aid, right? Whether or not you can. So, I mean, here's the same type of situation. This person has been involved in a major motor vehicle accident, and we like you said, they drive down to the end of the block. Even if they didn't think they were still looking for the car, they were looking to their right or left because they're making that turn, right? Because you don't want to know another car coming. So there's no way that they could not have seen that. And it would have been, like we said, it just would have been so much easier for them to go there, just even call 911 with the fire. I don't know, maybe they couldn't have got in to rescue him, but at least call, get on the radio and request the fire department,
Right. Right. There's no reasonable person is going to watch that video and say those officers did not know that car crashed and was there crashed.
No.
I mean, I understand it's a foggy, grainy video, but it's clear enough. It's clear enough that you can't say that they didn't see it. They didn't perceive that there was an accident there. And they didn't. All right, they say, well, I thought that he might have ran on foot. Whatever their story is going to be, but you didn't even check.
No.
You didn't do your due diligence. You didn't even check. You didn't pull up. You didn't radio it in, even though you're on a different frequency. Even if you called the 50 dispatcher to put it over for that location, there would have been some confusion, but they would have been able to put it over.
Right.
While you're trying to figure out on the radio, going into Manhattan North and figuring out what precinct you're in, you may not even know what precinct they're in, which is quite possible. But you can still put it over your division and have your division at this location. There's been an accident. We need fire department, we need ambulance, and then everybody on the 50 can be like, what the hell what are they talking about?
Yeah, what are
You're
they
in a
doing?
50 frequency. Yeah. Central, they'll have to explain that later, which, they wound up having to explain later. But I definitely think there's criminality involved here. I think it's crossed the line of termination because, they have, deviated from so many patrol guard procedures, and their failure to take police action is just, it's too far gone for that. It's beyond. They don't have a job.
No.
They're suspended with pay. They're not going to have a job, but it's a matter of whether they're going to have their freedom. And class of 8311, they talked about. He said earlier, and again, it'll come up in the criminal case. If there was smoke in the lungs at the autopsy, it'll show he was alive during the fire. Like he wasn't killed from the trauma of the actual accident. True. I don't know how badly burned the body was, and if that, will be able to be determined. I don't know how well, I'm not into the forensics that much, but it's a horrible, horrible incident. It's terrible. It's something that you wouldn't think that cops would do, but is this a genesis from a couple of years ago when Chief John Shell was the chief patrol, right? And he came out and he made statements about people not thinking that they're going to just run from the police anymore, right? So he's, his words were, "Those days are over," right? So yeah, if you scroll down to the bottom of that, people thinking they can take off on us, those days are over, he said. The days of driving around the city lawless, doing what you think you're going to do, those days are over. Right? So
Right.
since he made that statement, let's bring up that graphic of the increase from vehicle pursuits that ended in crashes and injuries and deaths. And you're going to see that since Mayor Adams became the mayor, and then Chief John Shell became the chief of patrol, which is the number 2 circle, you just see how the numbers just skyrocketed, right? So in 2022 to 2023, when John Shell was chief patrol and he made those statements, vehicle pursuits just skyrocketed. And they became so problematic where there was such an increase of over 600 that then when Police Commissioner Tisch comes in the beginning of this year, she puts the brakes on it. She says, like, enough is enough. We're not going to do this anymore. And she reverses the policy. Right?
I like how you said she puts the brakes on it. That's cool.
Yeah. She puts the brakes. No pun intended there, right? But the thing is, she puts it back to, we're only going to chase people for felonies and violent misdemeanors. So now you have a GLA. That's a felony. You and I both know, is that getting written up as a GLA?
No, because especially, right, you have to find out where it was stolen from. If it was stolen in the same borough, then maybe. But usually it's just criminal possession of stolen property. And did that guy actually steal it, or did he take it from somebody else? So yeah, that GLA is like an unwritten BS crime that nobody ever gets charged unless you absolutely has a witness that somebody stole that car.
Right. It used to be when we were cops, they would, we charged them with the GLA, right? And then the DAs would charge it if it was a fresh steal.
Right.
They would charge the GLA, but they don't even do that anymore. You're
No.
lucky. You're lucky if they're going to get them for criminal possession of stolen property
Or unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. Right.
unauthorized
That was
use.
the catch-all at the end.
Exactly. That was the catch-all. So when, Tish put that reversal out, the numbers have gone down, but, how many pursuits, I'd like to know how many pursuits those guys were involved in prior to,
Yeah.
Where's their supervision? And we talked about this in the past. Where was their supervision that they felt that they could get away with chasing a car from the Bronx over the bridge, down the FDR, into Harlem, and not get flagged,
Yeah.
that his boss wasn't looking for him. So,
I like a quick, 8311, right? Class of 8311. Can PO's body-worn camera bring up their conversation after the fact? And I think you and I have talked about that. We don't believe they can, because this type of body-worn camera that we have, they're not able to do it. In future ones, I think if they upgrade the technology or whatever, I think they can. And then that might be something
Right.
interesting. And there was also one other thing real quick. Somebody else asked about dash cams, right? So I only know of highway to have dash cams, the highway patrol officers, normal radio cars, radio motor patrol cars in the precinct, the sector cars, they don't have the dash cams. They just have the AVLs in them.
Yeah, and I think they started putting them in those low-profile summons cars, the ones that don't have the light bars, the marked RMPs that don't have the light bars. I think they were putting them in those. I don't know if that's still the case, but they were doing that for a while. But yeah, so there's no dash cams, and the body-worn cameras that the NYPD use, because I looked this when we did the body-worn camera episode. I looked through the whole Axon site, and they have body-worn cameras that will activate once you turn on your lights and sirens, right? Automatically, body-worn camera goes on. Other things. If somebody else's body-worn camera within a certain distance goes on, yours automatically turns on. We don't have those. There are functions where they can turn on and go back 24 hours, but we don't have that function in the NYPD. When the body-worn camera is activated, it's on a 1-minute loop. And so the first minute has no audio because it goes back that first minute, and then the audio kicks in. So the video goes back 1 minute. So if they didn't have their lights on, they didn't have their sirens on, they didn't put over the radio that they were in a vehicle pursuit, I highly doubt that they activated their body-worn camera at any time during that whole incident.
No, it was a good question. I think New York 1975 says unmarked precinct cars have the cameras. So that's something new. I wasn't aware of that. So thank you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? That's right. When they started doing the public safety teams, that was one of the things that they wanted, was the public safety teams had to have body-worn cameras, and the cars had to have the dash cameras. I do remember that now. But so they were outfitting the unmarked cars for the public safety team. But yeah, you have. Listen, I think that they're in for a rough road ahead legally. It's unfortunate, but listen, we're very pro cop, both of us, but we're going to call out wrong when it's wrong. And I don't think either one of us think that these two officers should be NYPD. They don't represent what an NYPD officer is, to go out there and to protect the life and property of fellow New Yorkers. And these two officers I'm sorry that they deserve what they have coming to them.
Yeah, no, I mean, they'll be lucky if they don't go to jail, and they should definitely be terminated because I don't think they deserve to wear the patch to protect and serve the people of New York, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or indifferent, right? That was our job. I remember, you lock somebody up and you brought them into the precinct cell, and game was over, right? They already caught. Hey, you want a soda? You want potato chips? Why you offering me that stuff? Because I thought maybe you wanted them. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's how you are. It's a human being, right? They're not. You're just there to arrest. You're not there to prosecute or condemn. You
That's
got
it.
to stay neutral.
100%. It's the same thing with use of force. I used to always tell everybody the fight's over when the fight's over.
Yep.
The fight doesn't continue because you have your, adrenaline is going. You have to control. You have to keep it to check. You got to keep your partner's adrenaline in check. Once it's over and the person is in custody and in control, because there are times when people have cuffs on and they're still fighting, and force still needs to be used. But
Right.
we're deviating. So let's let's move on. I see Jim is in the studio and ready to join us. So like I said at the top of the show, we have Jim Walden, who's a New York City mayoral candidate. And he's going to come on. He's on the show. Welcome, Jim. How are you?
Great.
Jim, how are
Thanks,
you?
guys, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. You announced some big news Monday on John and Eric's show about if you're elected, that you're going to create the Citywide Department of Public Integrity. And I think it's a great plan. It's well thought out. I read your whole thing online. And we can go to jimfornewyorkcity.com and it'll pop right up. And you'll tell us about it. And we're going to actually scroll through some of it as we explain. So why don't you introduce yourself to our audience, which is some of the people from Eric and John's audience, but welcome.
Well, thanks a lot for having me, and I'll try not to bore the repeat listeners that were on John and Eric's show. And I see Eric in the chat. Hey, Eric. Listen, I love listening to you guys. First and foremost, you guys have expressed values and positions that I think are the best of the best police department in the world. So thank you both for your service. And I was really proud to put out this policy. I know from my time as a federal prosecutor, I came to New York in 1993 to take my dream job, which is being a federal prosecutor. I worked alongside the NYPD, the FBI, and the DEA in a kind of a task force that we created to go after the mob citywide. And some of my best friends are cops and have stayed very close with them throughout the years. And I care about the police, and I care about what's happening in the city right now. For years, we've had Democratic candidates saying defund the police and strip qualified immunity, and let's let city council micromanage how the police do their jobs. And all that's happened is it has really eroded the morale of the police and limited, at least for a lot of cops, the degree to which they really want to engage with people, because even over small transgressions, somebody has a bad day and they issue harsh words, suddenly they have a CCRB complaint. And the CCRB and the way it works has been a primary reason that police are leaving the department, or at least one of them. So I wanted to fix the system because the CCRB is really not working for anyone. It's been underfunded since it was created. The appointees, put too much pressure on investigators, the ones that remain there, to only find evidence to substantiate a civilian's complaint, not to find exculpatory and mitigating evidence. And even when a complaint is unsubstantiated, it stays on an officer's record essentially forever. And we wouldn't stand for that with regular citizens. I mean, if someone is not accused of a crime and the alleged crime is found to have not occurred, there wouldn't be some permanent mark on their record, but somehow we let it happen with cops. So I wanted to come up with a better system. And the better system is an agency that has the resources to get at the serious cases, and to let the less serious cases be dealt with by NYPD through an administrative process that's confidential, that allows police to improve from their mistakes the way we all need to improve from our mistakes. We all make them. We all deserve an opportunity to get better and to grow with our mistakes. We learn mostly from them. And so this new agency is going to, if I have my way, and it's going to require a change in the city charter, it is going to be the exclusive agency to investigate corruption citywide and serious cases of police misconduct. It's going to have the tools that it needs, and it's going to be well funded. I want it to take over for what's called the public advocate. That's another independent position in New York. The public advocate has a budget of like $6 million and barely does anything. It would be better to use that money and the money that's allotted to inspector generals in all the agencies to a citywide agency that deals with corruption cases and cases of uniform abuse. And so that's what I want to do. It'll be a better process for police officers because it will only focus on serious cases. And it'll be a better agency for the public because it'll have real accountability. I want to create a special court that the prosecutors of the CDPI can take their cases to fast track those cases so that where we find corruption or serious abuse, those people are taken out of their agency forthwith. They'll have due process protections too. I mean, they'll have a right to counsel. They'll have a right to discovery. They'll be able to challenge the evidence and cross-examine the witnesses. That's fair. That's part of the American justice system. And that's what we give to our citizens. That's what we should give to our cops. So I'm proud of this policy. I hope that other candidates adopt it. It'll be a better process for everyone.
Yeah, Jim, I totally agree. And I think your plan is, as Eric would say, spot on, because what it also does, it allows a police officer to have a feeling that they're not going to be prosecuted or persecuted because for every little CCRB, I know you said at a point, if a person needs retraining or they had a bad day, we can move on, right? So it's not everything, killing them and crushing them every time. So I think it would also might roll into like more people wanting to become police officers, because that's one of the external components that police officers don't want to do, because they have the CCRB looking at every single thing that they do, and realizing that when they come for interviews, whether it's to go in the precinct, if they want to move up to anti-crime or one of the street narcotics enforcement units, or even if they want to come to the special operations division, that plays such an important point in our evaluation of the person. And it's really not fair, because we try to be as fair looking at it, that there's a possibility that people get them, but when they CCRB goes out after you and just looks for everything to prosecute you and not to show that you didn't do it or was right in what you did, I think your plan is really, really good, and it's going to have a huge impact on the morale and also on recruitment. Really good plan.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And there's another component to it as well. And I've seen this in some of my own work, which is there'll be a complainant that brings an allegation to the CCRB. And if they lie or they exaggerate, there's no consequence. When the CCRB brings a case to court, the person has to go under oath and testify. And then if they perjure themselves, they're subject to the same penalties as anyone. That's a fair process. That's part of American justice, is if you're going to make an allegation against someone, you've got to be prepared to swear to it in a court of law. And so that's why I think that this process is better for everyone. People will have more confidence that serious cases will have serious consequences, but that minor cases will go back to an administrative proceeding so that they don't follow police around. And when a complaint is not substantiated and the CCRB closes the case, that's it. That's the final decision. So yeah, I think that it's something that solves all of the problems. Yeah. And that's really the way I'm approaching this race, no matter whether I'm talking about the CCRB and allegations of police misconduct or the problems that we've had with the property tax system, just to take an example. These career politicians that we keep electing and keep giving second chances, third chances, they can't solve problems because at the end of the day, they don't want to solve problems, right? They keep their jobs when they announce programs or policies that look flashy and they announce them at press conferences, but they don't really solve the problems. And I want to be a mayor that is there for the right reasons, meaning I want to solve problems. And we have a real problem retaining and recruiting police officers. And if we don't change the way that that New York City respects and defends its police where it's appropriate, we're just going to continue to slide back and lose more good officers. And that's bad for everyone.
Yeah, I have one other thing that is like my biggest thing with the CCRB, and I think it's sort of answered in your policy. Is the problem is when CCRB substantiates a case against an individual, and I'll use Eric Dim because he's publicly spoken about it, and they substantiate a case of excessive force against Eric Dim. And then Eric Dim takes it to the trial room, the administrative trial room of the NYPD, and is found not guilty. It is still on his 50A that he is substantiated. So anyone non-NYPD that's looking at this looks at it and says he was found to have done this. It was substantiated that Eric did this to him. And one of the things was sticking his finger in someone's rectum in a cell. And they found that substantiated with no evidence. And he was found not guilty in the trial room on it. But yet, if you read through his cases, and it could affect him in post NYPD hiring, social life, right? What do people do? Oh, you were a cop? I'm going to Google Eric Dim. I'm going to Google Ron Leyson and see what pops up. And that's going to pop up. The 50A is going to pop up. And it's going to show that you were found substantiated, which means you were found guilty by the CCRB, right? The independent watchdog. But yet when he had his due process and his day in court, he was found not guilty when evidence was presented to an administrative judge, not to someone who was an investigator for the CCRB, who's just out of college, like you said, understaffed, underpaid, doesn't know how to conduct a proper investigation, and then he's found substantiated. So that case is never going to be removed from his case. Now, with your CDPI, those cases are they're kind of investigated and adjudicated within the same department, correct? So we wouldn't have that duality of being found substantiated and then not guilty.
Yeah. So this is a great point. Let me just kind of break that down, unpack that a little bit. So let's just say that we have an allegation that's serious, because that sounds like a serious allegation, right? So the CDPI investigates it. The CDPI investigates it. They're going to do a full investigation. You'll never even get to a substantiation phase or a trial phase if they actually do a meaningful investigation and they find that it was just fabricated and it never happened. There's no evidence to support it at all. Maybe even the complainant says that never happened.
The complainant didn't cooperate. He was incarcerated upstate and failed to cooperate with the case.
Yeah. So in that case, there is no, I mean, in the new system, there would be no substantiated complaint to be on someone's record. But for someone like Eric, if there's a substantiated complaint that the CCRB found going backwards, Eric and other cops in his position would get at least a little bit of justice, because that substantiated case would remain publicly available in the new agency for 1 year, and then it would go away, but only for active duty police officers. So for retired police officers, substantiated or unsubstantiated, those public records would go away, which again is fair. If you have unsubstantiated complaints, they shouldn't be staying on someone's record. The same way when John Doe or Jane Doe is charged with a crime and then ultimately they're found acquitted, there's no record of that on their rap sheet. And so that's a fair system. That's the system that we insist on for regular people. That's the same system that we should give to police officers.
No,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
appreciate that, and it's important to note that we're not trying to give anybody a free pass. We believe that anybody who violates their oath needs to be held accountable. But like you're saying, let's have some common sense standards. Unlike Arbor Rice in her city council meeting, who says she doesn't take the totality of the circumstances into account when looking at the case. It's just it's the civilian complaint review board, so they take it from the civilian's point of view. I mean, that statement right there just blows my mind. That you're saying that there's no due process.
Yeah,
And
could you imagine if there's a judge sitting on the bench that was presiding over a criminal case against anyone and said, you know what, I'm just a pro prosecutor judge and I'm just going to convict people every chance I can. Or the other way, you have some prior defense lawyer who was in legal aid for her whole career, and she takes the bench and says, I'm just going to acquit people. That's not the kind of balanced, fair justice that we need in any system. And if we don't accept that sort of bias in our criminal justice system, we shouldn't use it in a system that is meant for one purpose and one purpose only, to try and figure out if a cop did something bad, and if so, to find a way to punish it or come up with some sort of resolution that the cop has meaningful punishment and an opportunity to course correct in a meaningful way.
Right.
And so the CDPI is going to have another power that the CCRB doesn't have, which is, let's just say that there's a case that is serious, but the police officer says, you know what, I did it, and I was wrong, and I want a chance to get retraining or get whatever I need, anger management, whatever I need to become a better cop. Just like in the criminal justice system, the CDPI is going to have the ability to give the officer a non-prosecution agreement. And it's just basically a contract that says, you accept responsibility for what you did. Here are the things that you need to do as a consequence. You're going to sacrifice some amount of back pay or whatever the situation is. You're going to get retraining or re-education. You're going to go to these classes. And then for a period of time, you're going to be on probation. And as long as you stay clean during that period of time, then ultimately we will shut down our case officially and then remove it from the public glare. That's also fair to cops, because that's the exact same thing that we do in the larger criminal justice system. There are prosecutors' offices around the country and in this city that offer criminal defendants the right to have a non-prosecution agreement in an appropriate circumstance. The same standard should be applied to police allegations of police misconduct.
So it's like a modified ACD.
Yeah. I mean, I used them many times when I was a prosecutor for things where someone indicated that they accepted responsibility for what they did. They were willing to, turn over a new leaf, comply with whatever the requirements were. And if it's fair for criminal defendants, then it's fair for police officers that are willing to accept responsibility when they fell down.
I think another big problem right now, Jim, is that the CCRB, I think recently have been granted the authority to look at racial profiling and bias policing, and I don't think that they have the appropriate standards set up yet, where they don't even know what they're doing. And the other problem is that even if you get an allegation or they put that on you and that stays on your record, if you think you're getting a job anywhere in this country right now, you're out of your mind, because they're going to look at that, whether it was substantiated, exonerated, or whatever. They're going to see that, and they're not going to take that liability that this person did racial profiling, or somebody later on especially in the police department, right? Let's say you go to another agency in Virginia and they say, oh, we're not going to hire you because you have these allegations, whether or not they're true or false. Because what's going to happen is somebody is going to find them and then put them out and say, look what Virginia just hired. They hired this racist white guy or racist black guy, or whatever the case may be. But once you put racist on it, or racism, it diminishes that person's character for the rest of their life. So I think that's a big component, that none of these allegations, in my opinion, should be put on your record until the final disposition, right? Like if somebody agrees, that takes the plea or whatever, like you just said earlier, or they're convicted. Because anything else, you kind of diminish that person. And why would any police officer then at that point even want to get involved?
Yeah, I couldn't, I can give you other examples where whether it's racial profiling, abuse of office, excessive force, etc. We need confidence in the result, whether the
Right.
result is prosecution of the officer, or it is a non-prosecution agreement, or it is a decision by the prosecutors to decline prosecution because they've investigated fully and the allegation either can't be proven or is just false. We just need certainty, fairness, impartiality, and that's what this new agency is going to do. It's not going to be easy because there's a number of laws that we're going to need to change,
Right.
but I'm going to make the case to city council and wherever I need to go that this is a better system for everyone. And at a time when we have epic problems retaining and recruiting police officers, that we do everything that we can to have a balanced system where they know that their process rights matter too.
No, we're right now emphasizing on the CCRB portion of this, but there's a lot more to this Department of Public Integrity. You want to run us through the part about how you feel about the police policing themselves with the Internal Affairs Bureau, and what this CDPI, how that affects both Internal Affairs and the DOI?
Yeah, of course. So DOI, the Department of Investigation, as probably your listeners know, is the agency that's supposed to be the internal watchdog, right, for the entire city. So it's supposed to deal with corruption cases in every single agency, whether it's corrections, the Department of Finance, or whatever. And so this new agency is going to be made up of the Department of Investigation with just a lot more power. And again, if I have my way, the budget of the public advocate, it's essentially going to replace the public advocate, and it will also incorporate all of the individual inspector generals. Now, for the NYPD, it's internal affairs, but other agencies have these people, these staffs called inspector generals that are supposed to be policing the different agencies. They used to sit inside the agency like internal affairs, but a number of the agencies now have kind of outside inspector generals. They're underfunded. Some of those inspector generals cover multiple agencies, so they can't really get at the root problems. I'm going to basically combine all of those resources together with extra funding to create this citywide agency that's going to go after corruption wherever it exists. And I want this, and this is another kind of key innovation, I want it to be completely independent. The reason that I want to put it in the city charter is the comptroller, as everyone knows, is an elected office, and the comptroller doesn't report to the mayor. So the comptroller is independent of City Hall. The public advocate is also the same. The public advocate is independent. Now, the public advocate has very little power, but it's always been odd to me that if the mayor gets hit by a bus, it's the public advocate that steps in, and the public advocate is often the least qualified elected official in the city. And so the head of the CDPI will be the person that succeeds the mayor if the mayor either is removed or dies in office. So we will have a qualified professional that is the interim mayor until there's a special election. And the department will have the ability to go after corruption citywide, no matter where it exists within the agency, and without any pressure from the mayor. So again, if it gets in the city charter the way I want it, it will be a completely independent agency. And what I've been saying to voters and supporters is, that I'm a person of integrity. If I'm willing to create an anti-corruption agency that doesn't report to me, remember that Bill de Blasio's first commissioner of the Department of Investigation was his campaign treasurer.
Yeah.
Like, how could you possibly have a meaningful oversight function with someone that's that close to the mayor? Now, that person ended up exercising some amount of independence, and that took some moral courage on his part. But it's just a bad system that way. The head corruption czar of the city of New York should be completely independent of City Hall. So hopefully that kind of gives people a thumbnail sketch of how much thought we put into this policy and how we try to come up with a policy that really got at the root of the problem. And that's why this kind of an agency is, honestly, we've needed something like this since Tammany Hall. And the elected officials don't really want it, right? They don't really want their administration being under a microscope by an agency that they can't control. But I'm a different person. I've been fighting for good government my entire career. And so I'm going to be a different kind of mayor that tries to reimagine the way that government works so that people can really be proud of City Hall again. I mean, when was the last time we were able to say that we were actually proud of City Hall?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you know what? The other thing, like you'll talk about within the NYPD, right? The Internal Affairs Bureau. And we've seen in the past on DeMadre that all that was a protection for him. And I can tell you honestly, white shirt immunity existed. When a white shirt did something, that was overlooked. It was pushed down. It was easily pushed off the table and forgotten about. And I think your plan is exactly what's needed, because it leads to those managers a level of integrity that we need, and we need to respect that. And the rank and file, when they see that they're held accountable, then they'll fall in, as good soldiers should, and they'll see that that what's going to happen to them could happen to themselves. So it's very, very important to have that outside agency, the outside view into the corruption, rather than just having that self-directed type of integrity where it doesn't matter. You're just really protecting. You're a protector rather than an investigator. So I think that's a great position, Jim. Really.
Well, Rob, honestly, the point that you're making is so incredibly important. I mean, I witnessed the spread of corruption when it starts at the top myself in one of the cases that I handled for the fire department, right? What's that old expression? The rot starts at the head, right? But it travels through the body. And that's what happens in these agencies when there are even well-meaning people that see that their bosses are on the take or that they're doing shady things. People, oftentimes just follow the path of their leader. And so in the fire department, from the time that he was even, when he won the primary, Eric Adams was reaching into the fire department and basically trying to do favors for his campaign contributors. What happened? Two lower level guys, saw what was happening, and they said, okay, we'll do our piece too. So they started taking money from developers to accelerate inspections. Right? Would they have done it if it wasn't for Eric Adams? I don't think so. Right?
No.
I think that they thought if the guy that's coming in as mayor can get away with this, we can get away with it too. We've got families to feed. So of course they were held accountable. They pled guilty. Now what happened to Eric Adams? He gets his case dismissed. What does that do to people's trust in government? It just causes people to say it's the little guy that gets caught and the big fish always swim away. It can't be that way. That is not a sustainable system. It's not a fair system. It's not an American system. And we got to change that. If we really want better policy and better service from our city government, we got to expect more from elected officials. And when they don't deliver it, we got to hold them accountable. And when we do that, it'll send the message throughout the ranks that, there's a new system in place and you better walk the line.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, listen, I think the plan is great. I think everybody should go on your website, scrolling along the bottom there, jimfornewyorkcity.com.
So it's a Jim for NYC, just
NYC,
JIMFORNYC.com. And if you go under policy commitments, it'll come up. And if you go on today, a new policy came out that has to do with getting special interests out of City Hall. Another thing that's been a real problem in the city that no elected official can seem to get himself off the teat of private money and lobbyists' influence. And I'm going to get it done as mayor because I care about good government. That's what I've cared about and fought for my entire career.
No, listen, we appreciate it. We appreciate your honesty. We appreciate the due diligence that you've put into this, the thought that you've actually put into a policy like this, and again, it's not, I have friends in law enforcement, so I'm pro law enforcement. So, I want to listen to whoever's going to bitch at me and try and help them out. You're looking at it from a holistic view for the entire city. And when you're looking at the current city administration, I'm sorry, it's everybody that has been in the Adams administration, and we don't get very political on the show. But we can't deny what's right in our face, and that every appointment that he's made has left under a cloud of some sort, and that says a lot, right? They say that you judge the character of a man by who he surrounds himself with, and that's not saying much for the current administration. I'm sorry. And with this current race, again, people are like making comments, you should be up higher in the polling and this and that. But this could be a 5-way race. This could be a 4-way race. We need people to get out and vote, whoever they're going to vote for. We need people to get out and vote. I'm still a New Yorker. I will be voting in the upcoming election. I vote in every election, but I'll definitely be in it. People, that's one of the biggest problems in New York City is the low voter turnout. And with this election especially, it's so important because I know John and Eric were going over the numbers of how many people how many votes somebody they think needs to actually win this election if it's split so much. And we have a Democratic primary coming up very soon, and I can't vote in that, but.
Well, listen, let me just say this, and I'm not going to get political, but what I'm going to say is this. I was a public servant for 9 years. It was the proudest thing I've ever done in my career, and I've done a lot of things that I'm proud of, but I still look back at my time as a prosecutor and what I was able to do with men and women from the NYPD and the FBI and the DEA as the proudest thing that I've done in my professional career. And so the way I'm going to win this race is I'm going to stand up for public servants that are good, well-meaning people that serve the city. And that's why my law firm represents the retired public service organization in their fight for healthcare. That's why if every retired and on-duty public servant votes for me, I'm going to be starting the race with 300,000 votes. So I echo what you've said. You guys want me to go up in the polling? Don't worry, I will. My race only starts after the Democratic primary because I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. So get this link around, talk to your friends, invite me to your community. I'm going to visit every single community in New York between June 25th and the time of the election, literally every single one. And I'm going to get the message out. I'll get there. I'm already at 7% in the polling and my race hasn't even started. I've raised $3 million. My race hasn't really even started. I've got 2 endorsements. My race hasn't really started. Don't worry, everyone. Buckle in. It's just starting. It's going to be good.
It's good. It's good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's an innovative way. You're thinking. You're definitely moving in the right direction. And I could tell you that you have a serious and important platform, and it's a strong platform. And I truly believe in you. And believe me, all my friends and family that live in the city, I will be pushing them to vote for you unequivocally, Jim, because I truly believe that you have the right path to bring the city back to what me and Ron knew how good it was at a certain point. And we know that you can do that for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just, I know we brought you on to talk about the CDPI, but a lot of people in the comments are asking because they follow the show and they know about John's plight and Marlon's plight. And I know you've spoken about it on John and Eric's show. If you could just share with our audience your position on the reinstate and compensate for those city workers that were terminated or forced to resign or retire under the vaccine mandate.
Oh, come on, man. Screw those guys. No, I'm kidding. No, my position is super public on this. I call this COVID injustice, right? So, I've been hit as like a, science denier for a very simple thing. I took the vaccine. That was my choice. I got autonomy over myself, right? The fact that there are public servants that weren't comfortable taking the vaccine, why wouldn't people be? When I took the vaccine, I was like, is this thing going to work? Have people really tested this? That's a really personal decision that should be left to people based on their own set of values. And even if it means that, for a period of time, they couldn't come to, I mean, no one was going to work at that time anyway. They shouldn't have been fired for it. That's ridiculous. And it was just bad policy. Eric Adams knew, I don't know if you guys saw this interview. I can't remember. It was Eric Adams and Tucker Carlson, maybe. And Tucker was really pushing him. And he basically said that it was a bad policy, but then he wouldn't reverse it. I've already said that when I'm mayor on day one, I'm reinstating everyone. I'm going to apologize on behalf of the city, and I'm going to put a process in place to give people back pay because it was just wrong. And honestly, of all times, like if people can't wake up and see that it was wrong now, we need public school teachers. We have fired public school teachers that are still willing to work. We need police officers. We have police officers that can't work because they were fired under COVID. It was just a bad policy. And when I'm mayor, I'm going to make it right.
That's great. I knew that, but I just want you to let our audience know that from that. Rob, do you have any other questions for Jim?
Jim, we really appreciate you coming on. I know your time's important and you're very busy, and we wish you all the luck in the world, and we're counting on you.
Really Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Anything else you want to share? Anything else you want to share? Any upcoming events or anything that you want to put out? While you got a couple hundred viewers right now.
No, what I'll say to all the active duty people is, talk to your union, write your union. I mean, the law enforcement endorsements, the public service union endorsements are going to be super important to me. I mean, Andrew Cuomo's got the Rose Garden strategy where he's, twisting every arm that he can to get endorsements. But I'm counting on the public service community to stand up for someone that actually wants to stand up for them. And for everyone else, whether you're active duty in the NYPD or in any other agency or retired, thank you for your service. I mean, public officials don't say that enough. People make lots of sacrifices to work for the city of New York. For a lot of people, it's a dream to be able to work, whether you're in sanitation, parks, or NYPD. Public officials really should be there for you, and you have the ability to elect the next mayor if people really decide that they want someone that they can believe in, someone that's not a charlatan, someone that's not a smooth talker with no substance. And when you really look at all the candidates, that's what you're going to find in each and every one of the 5 that are going to remain after the Democratic primary is over, because there'll be 5 of us in my view. And I'm the only person that you can actually trust, because I'm the only person that is not either, a career politician or someone that may be well-meaning but not qualified to do the job. I'll do the job. I'll do it well. I'll make you proud, and I'll stand up for you.
Jim, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on and explaining your policy. I think it's phenomenal. Go on the website, click on the policy, take a look for yourself. It's about a 5-minute read, and you'll understand it. Like I said, it's a holistic view at looking at integrity, and it's not a free pass for anybody. But it's, giving everyone their due process, which is something that's definitely lacking in the current administration. So thank you very much for your time. We wish you the best of luck, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for.
All right. That was great.
Yeah, no, very interesting. I mean, I love the change in policy. I think, when you put something fair out there and reasonable, we can accept it. We know that the current CCRB is not fair and it's not reasonable. It's understaffed, it's underfunded, and the investigators have a zero clue about what police work even is, right? So I mean, at least if the process is fair and the process is right, we can accept that. We understand that, we're just like the law is written in black and white, right? So we understand the penal law, we understand the criminal procedure law. So give us something that we can understand, and don't constantly change things or add things like racial profiling and bias policing. Don't add things that are unnecessary and not really proven to be a real problem. Don't create a problem. All right, and I think having that independent ability to look into the police department ensures that our supervisors, right, up at the top, have the same level of integrity that somebody on patrol does. And I think that's the fairest thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, and we need change. So let's talk about the current state of the country, and with the anti-ICE protests that are turning into riots. So obviously, we started out in LA when you have ICE going out and announcing that they're going to have a raid, and people have their right to go out and peacefully protest and stand in front of the federal building and yell and scream all they want. But that's not exactly what happened.
No.
Yeah. So why don't we hear what Mayor Bass had to say on CNN about
Now,
what's
Los
going
Angeles
on?
Mayor Karen Bass. Hi, Mayor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi.
Hi. So,
Thank
what are
you for having
you
me
and
on.
your police force? I know how busy you are preparing for the hours ahead. What are you expecting on that front?
Well, I just have to say that if you dial back time and go to Friday, if immigration raids had not happened here, we would not have the disorder that went on last night. I will tell you that it is peaceful now, but we do not know where and when the next raids will be. That is the concern, because people in the city have a rapid response network. If they see ICE, they go out and they protest. And so it's just a recipe for pandemonium that is completely unnecessary. Nothing was happening here. Los Angeles was peaceful before Friday. When we find out when and where the other raids are going to happen, that will determine how the police respond.
It just blows my mind, because what she's doing there is blaming the ICE raids for what's going on. She's not condemning it. She's saying that when we find out where the other raids are going to be, the people are going to respond there, because we have a rapid response group, pretty much set up in Los Angeles. So she's saying, what is she saying? What's your take on that? That's my take.
She's saying
Blows my mind.
if ICE didn't come in and do their job, then everything would be fine. So we wouldn't need to demonstrate or riot, because once ICE came in, they ruined it. They ruined it for everybody. It was terrible.
Everybody was having a good time. It was a beautiful Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Lovely time in LA, but then the federal government came in and did their job. Now, listen, LA is a sanctuary city. New York City is a sanctuary city. We have our own views on whether we should or should not be involved in ICE and in the deportation process. But as sanctuary cities, right, it's our policy, it's the NYPD's policy, LAPD's policy, LA County Sheriff's policy, that they're not going to get involved in the deportation process. So they weren't. ICE was out doing what ICE does. They were rounding up these illegals for deportation processes, and the city knew it. They prepared for it. They had, just like we had here in 2020, right, with the BLM, they had pallets of bricks delivered throughout the city. They had gas masks rolled up in a truck. You have all these convenient signs that were all printed nicely somewhere and handed out, right? These people, it's very well organized. This is not something that was just a pop-up demonstration that went bad. And again, we see what's going on, right? We see what's going on. It was a nice, like you said, it was a nice Saturday afternoon, until they attack the California Highway Patrol, right? Everybody's seen all of these videos that have been looping, right? Destroying vehicles, throwing bricks off the top, right? Now, those bricks were thrown while those cars were also moving, but they're just destroying these California Highway Patrol vehicles who have nothing to do with the ICE deportation, right? So they're out there and, you know, look at those large fireworks. Those are commercial grade fireworks. That's not your firecrackers. That's not your bottle rockets, right? Those are commercial grade fireworks that they're now throwing at the police to throw them off, right? And then you have the second video of them throwing the bricks off. This cop is trying to get to their car, and watch this. This cop gets hit with a brick so hard it knocks his helmet off of his head. If he didn't have his helmet on his head, the cop is dead. The cop is dead. And you just have these people standing there videotaping and cheering it on. But these cops are trapped. These cops are trapped underneath this overpass. Cars are burning in the street. And she's like, it was a beautiful Saturday afternoon until ICE started doing their raids.
Well, who invited ICE to the party anyway? I mean, that was the problem. Once you invite ICE to the party, it just went awry. But with those the California Highway Patrol, you know, they were clearing the highway because the protesters had actually gone onto the highway or blocking vehicle traffic. So they're able to clear it out. I think the problem was right there is that they didn't get the high ground, whether it was a miscommunication with the sheriffs or LAPD up on top. But I mean that would have been an important thing to do, or get in there, get clear the area and get in your car and get out of there as fast as you could if you could do that. So the fact that they have. We've seen it in Mott Haven. They had hammers, they had milk to douse themselves if they got sprayed with mace. So they had, they knew what they're doing, huh?
They still have that, yeah.
And that's what they're doing here, right? Exactly. And what they're doing is they're breaking up. One person's carrying a brick in their backpack, then they're taking it, they're breaking it up. And then they have pieces of brick that they hand out to other people to throw and use as projectiles against law enforcement. So I mean, it really became a volatile situation. And what are they demonstrating there? Are they demonstrating against ICE, or has it turned completely into lawlessness? Because they're throwing bricks at the highway patrol that have nothing. Like you said, Sanctuary City, LAPD, the Highway Patrol, they're not doing anything with ICE, right? Other than maybe if they have to respond to protect them for something. But other than that, they're not doing any enforcement. So I don't even know how, they just because they're wearing a uniform, they were attacked.
And they're lighting all these cars on fire, right? T-Mobile must be giving ICE phones because their stores are getting raided. T-Mobile, ICE must have went in for a cup of coffee at the 7-Eleven because they're getting looted, right? Because there has to be some type of connection, right? So why would they just go in and just destroy property and go in and loot the 7-Eleven and loot the Apple store and loot the T-Mobile store and everything else, light all these cars on fire? But then, you watch Channel 7 News and let's listen to what the mainstream media has to say. It's reminiscent of 2020.
It could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators.
They're just having fun watching some cars burn.
Yeah, wait, hold on. You're telling me that you don't, in the summer, have a car in your backyard and burn it and have your friends and neighbors over and roast marshmallows, make s'mores? We do that all the time with burning cars, like you said, what was CNN last time? It's mostly a peaceful demonstration, and
Well, the city's burning.
huge
It's like
fire in the background.
Baghdad behind
Oh.
them. You know,
It's a bona fide riot here.
horrible. And then you have the LAPD comes on TV, and the chief from LAPD, I thought, gave an honest assessment.
But safely for everybody involved.
Hold on. Go one at a time, please, and let's identify name and outlet.
Victor with Univision Chief. We have seen two kinds of groups, at least from Friday, Saturday, and today that have been working. The community that is enraged and they're not happy with the actions of ICE, and then the community that loots and attacks and destroys our city. What would be your direct message to both groups?
Yeah, to the people who are not happy with the fact that ICE is in the community doing what ICE does. I respect ICE for being a fellow law enforcement agency. They have their mission. They have their what they have to do. We don't engage in that activity, but again, we can't preclude them from doing that. They have every right to do that. I ask people in the community to trust the LAPD, that we're not there for that purpose, and that if they have something they need us to be able to address, we're there for them. As far as the big picture of what can I recommend they do or not do, that's something it's a federal issue, and the federal authorities have the right to be able to do what they're doing. As far as people are worried about the violence that we're seeing, this violence that I've seen is disgusting. It's escalated now since the beginning of this incident. What we saw the first night was bad. What we've seen subsequent to that is getting increasingly worse and more violent. Tonight we had individuals out there shooting commercial-grade fireworks at our officers. That can kill you. And we have adapted our tactics to be able to have a chance to be able to take these people into custody and to be able to hold them accountable. We are overwhelmed as far as the number of people out there engaged in this type of activity and the type of things that they're doing. They'll take backpacks, and the backpack will have a cinder block in it. They have a hammer, and they'll break up the cinder block and use that, pass it around to throw at officers, to throw at cars, and throw at other people. We've seen people with hammers, and you've broadcasted breaking the bollards behind the federal building and taking the rocks, if you will, or pieces of concrete, and throwing them at officers. We've had liquid of who knows what description thrown at officers. There's no limit to what they're doing to our officers, and
he admits it, right? I mean, he admits that he's overwhelmed. I mean, I think in subsequent interviews with Bass and him, he kind of says, "No, we're not." You know, we he's called in mutual aid and a few other things, but at that one, he completely he's honest about it. At least, right. You know, I give him the honesty. I think he changes his tune a little later on, but I give him credit for his honesty in that particular interview.
Right, he changes when he's standing there with Bass, who changes her tune from "Oh, it was a lovely Saturday afternoon" to "We now have a curfew in Los Angeles,
right?
An 8 o'clock curfew where you're not allowed to be on the streets or you're going to be locked up because you waited too long to engage, and you waited too long." But like he said, the federal government has the right to be out there, right? But what do the federal legislators have to say about that? I believe Maxine Waters was out and about, right? Wasn't she out and about, and she was trying to get into the building to see somebody? Well, let's see what she has to say.
And even those who were out of step with what we are advocating, peaceful protest, did not create any violence. Nobody was shot, nobody was killed. Get it in your head. And so when martial law is called, what are you going to say? I missed the point. Don't miss the point, you all. Don't think that somehow, because they called out the National Guard, there was violence. There was no violence. I was on the street. I know. And I went from downtown detention back out into the community, talking to people what happened in Paramount, what happened in Compton, what happened in Inglewood. So, first of all, get it straight and don't just rely on what you're being told or the few incidents that you saw.
the few incidents that you saw that led to a curfew from Mayor Bass, who doesn't want to do anything, right?
No.
But she, you know, what do you think about that little side by side?
Yeah,
I
no, I mean,
I
really,
thought that was a great piece.
yeah, it was since nobody got shot or killed, then it's peaceful. Okay, you tell me a store owner, right, that got totally his store got totally ripped off and everything stolen out of it. I mean, I saw a video where a guy was trying to hold a door and they were literally ripped it out of him and got inside. So his whole livelihood is destroyed. But that's okay because he didn't get shot or killed. I mean, clearly it's crazy. I mean, you talk about, you know, it's just when you talk about California and just riot in general, it says, you know, to prove the defendant is guilty of this offense, the prosecutor must be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant willfully participated in a riot. So, I mean, you can easily see that 2 or more people acting together without any legal authority disturbs the public peace by using force or violence or threatening the use of force or violence. And they may have the immediate ability to carry out these threats. So I don't think she knows the law, right? She's just saying because it's not this and that, it's nothing. No, it's a riot. It is a riot. And I think we should get into, you know, the deployment of the National Guard. Did that really made it a riot? I mean, you know, I don't think so. I don't think so. Right? Where was the National Guard deployed? Right? Did they take the streets?
No.
No.
And let's you know, let's be clear. I mean, we have a graphic we're going to pull up, but before that, let's hear from our defense secretary, right, Pete Hegseth, and he was at a hearing and he was asked, you know, why wasn't who under whose authority was the National Guard called into Los Angeles?
Mr. Secretary, what's the justification for using the military for civilian law enforcement purposes in LA? Why are you sending war fighters to cities to interact with civilians?
Every American citizen deserves to live in a community that's safe, and ICE agents need to be able to do their job. They're being attacked for doing their job, which is deporting illegal criminals. That should happen in any city, Minneapolis or Los Angeles. And if they're attacked, that's lawless, and President Trump believes in law and order. So he has every authority, and he has done mobilizing National Guard or active duty troops under U.S. code to protect federal agents in their job, which is exactly what we're doing, and we're proud to do it. We're proud to do it.
10 U.S.C. of the U.S. Code 12406 as a legal basis that the president used cites 3 examples and circumstances for the Guard: invasion by a foreign nation, a rebellion or dangerous rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States, or the president is unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Which authority is triggered here to justify the use?
I don't know. You just read it yourself, and people can listen themselves, but it sounds like all 3 to me. If you've got millions of illegals and you don't know where they're coming from, they're waving flags from foreign countries and assaulting police officers and law enforcement officers. That's the problem.
The laws of the United States.
No, the governor of California is unable to execute the laws of the United States.
The president, you said all
the governor of the California has failed to protect his people, along with the mayor of Los Angeles, and so President Trump has said he will protect our agents, and our Guard and Marines are proud to do it.
The law also says, Mr. Secretary, that the orders for these purposes shall be issued through governors of the states.
Right. He goes on to say, you and I both know where he had the proper authority to do so. And I saw a really good post by a friend of ours, Anthony Raganella, who put up on his LinkedIn an explanation of when the authority and where the authority comes from and what they're supposed to do, right? So the National Guard and military use for domestic law enforcement. Now, first, that senator was wrong, because as of right now, the Marines and the National Guard that were called up under federal authority are not being used for law enforcement purposes. They're being used only right now to protect federal facilities and federal agents, right? So who controls it, right? It's the state-controlled National Guard. So it's the governor of the state, right? But to federalize the National Guard, the president can do it under Title 10 USC, right? Keep that up. And, you know, the federal military under the Insurrection Act, which the president has not invoked the Insurrection Act as of yet. I feel that he probably will, because this is spreading throughout different cities and states now, right? We're seeing it in Chicago, we're seeing it in Texas, we're seeing it in Philadelphia, we're seeing it here in New York now, not just Los Angeles, right? But under the Posse Comitatus Act, right? Does it apply under state control? No. But under the federal government, yes, right? But again, without the Insurrection Act being invoked, it doesn't, right? So it does not permit law enforcement roles. Again, if the state calls it out, they can. They can arrest and they can enforce curfews and crowd control. Right now, there's a curfew in Los Angeles. The military will not be used to enforce those curfews because it's just a federalized National Guard right now under Title 10, right? If he invokes the Insurrection Act, then they get police powers. They can arrest, control crowds, and enforce the laws, right? So right now, they're just using it to repel invasions, suppress rebellion, or enforce federal laws. And under the enforced federal laws is where they are using this. So you don't need state consent. So the federal government, the president of the United States has the authority and has sent in the National Guard and mobilized active duty Marines. All they are doing right now is protecting the federal buildings and the federal ICE agents. They are not involved in, you don't see them anywhere doing any kind of crowd control or anything like that. So that's where the authority comes from, the federal government superseding the state governor.
Yeah, no, they maintain the line, right? They made the line in front along the curb, and they maintain that line for the safety of the people inside the building that work in the building, and for any federal agents that are, you know, are also in that building. So, I mean, clearly that's within the purview of the president. When you think about the George Floyd riots or in Minneapolis when they took over the police precinct, right? That could have easily happened here. Okay.
Absolutely.
So you know, you have a volatile crowd, and they could easily went in and taken over everything. And that, first of all, I don't think that policing got destroyed. But you don't want that to happen to a federal building. And the president has full jurisdiction over a federal building, and he can deploy the appropriate means. And he activated them appropriately. He put the Marines there. And that's fine too, you know, but as long as they stay within their boundary, there really is no, you know, no objection. I would have no objection to it. You know, if they came to New York City, which we know our illustrious commissioner has a different point of view, but
we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yep.
But if they came, listen, and if our governor authorized them, I would work hand in hand with them, right? We have in the past, all right? How many times they've been on the bridges together? They've been put in subways in certain situations. So, I mean, they're a huge asset. What really surprises me, and well, it doesn't surprise me, is why didn't the mayor or the mayor request to the governor Newsom to activate them? Because it doesn't hurt to activate them and get them there. It doesn't mean you have to use them, right? But they're a force multiplier, and they're there for your disposal. So the fact that she didn't even do that, and he didn't even do it, the governor, I mean, then to blame the president for doing it to protect his own facilities, it's obscure. It's ridiculous. You know,
well,
there's no
everything
standard.
is to blame Trump and the Trump administration, because even the ICE deportation raids is under the Trump administration, right? So you have that. So everything is pushing the blame outward and not taking any responsibility for taking control and protecting their own citizens. They want to just blame Trump. They want to blame the federal government, and they just want to just sit back. Now, I think bringing in the federal troops because where did this all start? It all started around the federal building, the federal ICE building, right? That was the first location, even though obviously it was well planned, it was well financed, and like I said, pallets of projectiles were placed around strategically, right? These commercial grade fireworks, they just happen to be left over from the 4th of July or the upcoming 4th of July, right? We just happened to buy them a little early. So I had them laying around. So I'm now going to shoot them at the police. Come on, let's be real about this. And, Texas Governor Abbott, he's being proactive. Before they're even having their riots, because he's expecting when they do any kind of ICE enforcement in Texas, he's calling up his National Guard under his authority, which gives them police powers under the governor's authority. When the governor activates them, he's bringing them up. Number 23, Jack. He's bringing them up to, again, preemptively.
Right. And he's done that in the past, right? In previous items.
Right. He's doing this ahead of any protests, right? And I think that even here in California, rather, that although they're stationed around the federal building and with the ICE agents, it's a deterrent. It's an absolute deterrent, knowing the fact that they're there. Especially when you have the mainstream media, right? If you want to call it that anymore, when you have the media and yet you have your federal elected officials misstating their mission, misstating why they're there, stating that Trump is sending them in to military, active duty military, to police civilian populations. Not what he's doing right now. But you know what? Him saying that, maybe it is a deterrent. Maybe it will keep those who would normally go out and get involved in this to say, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to play this game. I saw what happened with the J6ers, right? When the federal government wants to go after them for the federal crimes. And Pam Bondi has said that you assault a police officer and the local politicians, the local district attorneys don't prosecute, we are going to prosecute federally. So they're going to prosecute federally because it's involving in a riot. If they assault these police officers, the assistant U.S. attorney in that district is going to prosecute these people. And the laws are strict, and they'll actually do some prosecution, unlike what we see here a lot of times, right? So ahead of anything coming, anything else on Cali, Rob?
No, I mean, I just think that when you saw the National Guard, I think they were a little better prepared than the Los Angeles Police Department. They had shields, they had bats. I didn't see that much. I mean, that in itself is a deterrent, right? And it's also very useful because it protects the officers, or at that time the National Guard. It protects them from any type of projectile and things. So I mean, does LAPD have them? I don't know. I saw them, some of them just standing out there in the open and utilizing the 40 millimeters or the to shoot sponge rounds or bean bags and things like that, which is good to push people back. But you also need that protection. We were taught you can also put the shield in front of you, and then somebody behind you could put the shield over you. So it kind of protects you, almost like you were almost back in the gladiator days, right? You put the shield over you. But those are all important things. And I think that I think what happens is they should have cut the head of the snake off immediately, called it what it was, and made those arrests. Once you let it go on, it always gets bigger. And the problem is media, right? The media puts it on TV, people see it, And then the next thing you know, you have people coming that don't even live in your community are coming into there, and they're looking to get involved. They're looking to get free stuff if they start looting stuff, right? So it just exacerbates the whole problem. It really is. So yeah, no, it's
Yeah. So while this was going on in Los Angeles, and before we had any incidents here in New York, there was a press conference with Mayor Adams and Police Commissioner Tisch, and let's take a listen to part of what they had to say.
Wrongs do not make it right. I understand that some New Yorkers may be angry, afraid, and ready to express that. New York City will always be a place to peacefully protest, but we will not allow violence and lawlessness. The escalation of protests in Los Angeles over the last couple of days is unacceptable and will not be tolerated if attempted in our city. And I want to assure all New Yorkers that we have the best police department in the world. Men and women who are prepared to handle any issues that may arise, especially when we are faced with deep division in our society. We should be able to express our sorrow and our rage, but we must turn pain into purpose. I encourage those who want to protest to heed the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who showed our great nation the power of peaceful protest. In 1964's speech, he said, "Nonviolence is a powerful and just weapon which cuts without wounding and ennobles the man who wields it. It is a sword that heals." In the face of conflict and division, we must choose peace and compassion over anger and retaliation. In New York City and all across the nation, in the pursuit of justice, we must choose the sword that heals. Balancing the needs for safety with the ideals of pursuing justice is what I have dedicated over 40 years of my life to, and what I will continue to do as the mayor of New York City. I thank you, and now I'll turn it over to Police Commissioner Tisch with more details on what we're doing to keep New Yorkers safe and ensure they can exercise their constitutional right to peacefully protest. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mayor Adams. As always, the NYPD will protect every person's right to protest peacefully. That right is central to our democracy, and the NYPD is committed to ensuring that people can always exercise that right safely. And as a matter of city law, we do not engage in civil immigration enforcement, period. We will continue to follow the law. But let me be crystal clear. We have no tolerance for violence, none. We have no tolerance for property damage. We have no tolerance for people blocking entrances to buildings or blocking driveways or blocking cars from moving. And any attacks against law enforcement will be met with a swift and decisive response from the NYPD. We are responsible for public safety and maintaining order in this city, and we will never abdicate that responsibility. I was on the phone all weekend with our federal partners. The message that I conveyed to them is the same message that I am conveying to you right now. At the New York City Police Department, we know how to police protests in a manner that maintains public safety and upholds the law. We have done so in thousands of protests over the last few years, and we will continue doing so going forward. At the mayor's direction, we have put plans in place so that if we do experience civil unrest of the sort that we have been witnessing in California, the full resources of the New York City Police Department are available and prepared to respond. We will maintain public order, and we will do it consistent with the law. I have tremendous confidence in the men and women of the NYPD who are expert in carrying out this critical work. I know that I speak on behalf of millions of New Yorkers who are grateful to them for their professionalism and for their commitment to service. Thank you.
How you feel?
Oh, I feel comforted now. Once Adams told me how Once you quote Martin Luther King and peacefully, I think everybody in the city is at a calm. They're gonna protest nicely, and since Jessica Tisch is, as she always says, crystal clear that they've set the tone, and I would imagine that New York City, there will be peaceful demonstrations, and everybody will abide by the laws and
They're
be
not
good.
gonna they're not gonna take over the streets and march down to the tunnel?
You heard them both. How could they?
I
How
don't know.
could
Let me
they?
think. Let me think. Let me think if I saw something that Eric posted over the
Do you have any
weekend.
video of it? I mean, you have to have video of the peaceful demonstration that's going on in New York City
Well,
now, don't you?
oh wait, here we go. Here's a little parade. We're not going to allow that.
No, that's not happening.
I will say this. I will say this. There's another video that was out there where I think it was. What do we say? We think it was Foley Square.
Yeah,
down by
Foley,
20,
yeah.
down by 24 Federal Plaza, and they were in the plaza and they were protesting. They're protesting the ICE.
Y'all are feeling that chant, huh? Y'all are feeling that chant.
Jack, just throw that up and give me a freeze frame on that for a second. What I'll say about this, this is a First Amendment activity. They're there. They want to chant. They want to stop. They want to protest ICE. They want to stop deportations now. On all those nicely printed signs that everyone seems to have made at home with their kids and their crayons. I don't know. It seems pretty organized. They seem to have a lot of well-printed signs there. But that is a First Amendment activity right there. They're not taking over any infrastructure. They're not being violent. They're not blocking the streets. They're not blocking the entrances anyway. That's a First Amendment protected activity right there. So that I don't have as much of a problem with. But the question that comes to mind when I look at that is how well organized it is. Like I said, somebody was passing around those signs. Just like people are placing somewhere throughout the city the cinder blocks and the bricks. Where is this coming from? Right? And I think it was Logic Finest asked before, who's paying for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big question. And John and Eric speak about that all the time. John's like, follow the money. Why don't we follow the money? Well, the problem is we arrest these people. When we do like 84 arrests over the weekend, right? The other night there was 84 arrests. So I'll give them credit for that. They actually took action. They brought in SRG, which under the 2020 post George Floyd riot settlement agreement, you basically have to wait until the shit has completely hit the fan before you bring in the SRG, who are our experts in crowd control. And it has to be brought in under the authority of the incident commander, right? Somebody designated by the chief of department. But you saw on all the other videos, SRG out there in force affecting arrests. So they got involved. They made arrests. Did we lose the streets? We lost the streets. Did they clear it up? I think they cleared it up. I think they did take action a lot faster than they did in the past. I don't think they let it fester completely like with the 2020 riots, when all I ever heard on Citywide was the inspectors and the chiefs going over the air, telling you what avenue they took over and how far south or north they're marching. And then keeping SRG on the periphery. Not even with the crowds. Allowing them, we gave them the streets. We gave it away. Here it looks like at least they're trying to nip it in the bud a little bit. So I'll give them some credit. But we'll see how this continues to play out. We'll see how this continues to play out. Because it did get a little bit ugly. And, you know, go ahead.
It did. Yeah, I mean, it got violent. I mean, yeah, under the normal conditions, you know, SRG would parallel them, follow them along. But yeah, it definitely got ugly. And what kills me is that SRG is not in the forefront, right? That it requires that authority of the incident commander to bring them forward. And I can see some of those incident commanders may be hesitant to do it because they know SRG is not going to be as tolerant as police officers. They're going to take action, and that means that action is going to be arrests or whatever. So I could see where they're a little hesitant to bring SRG in. But now, what cracks me up is, I see the community affairs officers who were supposed to be the liaisons with the leaders of that group. They're grabbing people and making arrests. So at what point do we say enough's enough? I mean, these are the guys that are supposed to be helping. Like, I mean, you see it right here. Look, they're adamantly involved in the arrest, and it's just it doesn't go with that agreement, right? That's not what we're expecting them to do. You've got the poor squad guys out there too. I mean, it must have been a full level 4 mobilization, and everybody and their brother was out there.
Yeah, I think that was a different night, but it's the same stuff that's going on. And it's one thing after another. And then we have to get hands on. And then the problem is going to be, like we talked with Jim Walden earlier, right?
Oh,
you're going to wind up. Yeah. It's going to be, people are saying, hey, we're going to have plenty of content for next week's show. It's going to be a really heated weekend this weekend, right? We already know that they have scheduled demonstrations, large-scale scheduled demonstrations in blue cities throughout the United States this weekend. And they've admitted that they already have intelligence on a big protest that's going to happen on Saturday, right? So Saturday is going to be a big day. And there's going to be people that are going to get hurt. There's going to be cops that are going to get hurt. There's going to be civilians that are going to get hurt, right? And Jack, I don't know if you can grab off of Eric's Twitter real quick. Eric put up a post a little earlier today for cops to be safe out there because he was villainized, as, the most complaining cop and everything else. But because he was out there during those riots in 2020, and they have that infamous picture of him on top of the car with the baton, right? In 2020, I was vilified and demonized for maintaining and restoring order in the George Floyd riots. Beware, NYPD boots on the ground. Your photo may be next. And then here's the photo. Scroll down to show everybody the photo that everybody already kind of knows about, with Eric on top of a car, repelling people back who were throwing projectiles at the cops. And they took this photo and made him the monster that he is, and that's what you have to be. You have to protect yourself. You have to protect each other. You have to protect the public, and you have to actually protect property. Also, that's our job as law enforcement officers. You got to be really, really careful, because at the end of this, at the end of this, there's going to be another ton of CCRBs. There's going to be another ton of lawsuits of all these people that get arrested, right? We're not even allowed to kettle under the agreement, under the settlement agreement. We're not even allowed to kettle. So if you're standing out there and you use those, what are they, what are they called? The RBAD? What are the
flex cups?
The big speakers that have the
the
LRAD, right? The LRAD to make these announcements, to clear the street. Anybody in the street is going to be arrested. You see Timmy you see him in every video with the megaphone, right?
Right. Yeah.
Chief with the megaphone, and he's like, anybody in the street is going to be arrested. The LRAD's already announced that you cannot block the street, and if you're in the street, you're going to be arrested. And they're actually taking enforcement action and taking those people into custody. We're not allowed to kettle anymore. And for those who don't know what kettling is when the police strategically kind of box people in when they don't listen and they don't want to disperse, in order that we can make a more orderly and safe mass arrest situation. But under the settlement agreement, we're not allowed to do that.
And you
So
see,
basically,
you see what's happening now?
grab who you can grab.
And they're running, and we're running after them.
Right.
It's a terrible, terrible thing. They took a perfect tool away that they, just to make that settlement agreement. Because if you kettle people and you box them in, you can systematically arrest everybody there. Obviously, you're going to say, we're arresting everybody in this particular position. Or you can kettle people and then pick out the agitators in that group and go in and take them into custody. But to stop that was a stupid thing, because now you have these guys running down. It's like you're playing football. You're trying to tackle the guy going down the street. It just leads to total chaos. It really is a stupid thing that they stopped that.
This is going on today. Yeah, it's just
here. My thing is this: where's the intel? Okay, like you said earlier, where are the signs being made? Who's paying for the signs? Who's ordering the bricks? How are the bricks getting delivered there? How are pickup trucks showing up with these sophisticated masks so you don't have to inhale the gas or anything else? You have cell phone capabilities. You can ping phones. You can look at who hit what cell site. You can easily identify these people. And like you said, bring them in and charge them for the riot. Don't give them the discount that we normally give. Charge them with the felony, and then get the intel and find out who's supplying all this money and all these products that they're using. It's very easy to get to the top and stop it all, and unless they do that, it's going to continue to happen, because people get paid. Everybody's saying George Soros, and I don't disagree. I don't disagree. But the problem is you need to systematically look at the evidence that leads up to him. I'm sure the money is filtered somewhere else, but there's a possibility that we can do this right now. If you have this large amount of people, you're going to get people to talk. I mean, you need proper intelligence, you need proper investigation and interrogation. And until they do that, right, they're just watching the show.
Right. We're just doing that. We're making these arrests, giving DATs, right? When we're even allowed to make arrests.
Right.
Because during the settlement agreement says right here, right? These are the red light and green light, right? Again, red light and green light. And unless, right, they have individual probable cause, you can't do any arrests, okay, for violations of emergency orders, OGA, riot, inciting to riot, nonviolent obstruction of governmental administration, disorderly conduct, trespass, criminal mischief third or fourth degree, the VTL laws of unlawful assembly or 24010, right? Any offense not designated as a red light offense will be considered a green light offense. But any of those offenses that I just talked about there, any of those offenses, You need a captain or above approval to make an arrest. That's crazy.
That's bizarro world. You know, it's a law in the penal law, and we are trained and understand. I mean, you're taught in the academy about Riot, right? I mean, so you know about it. You know about the legalities of it. You know what the requirements are for it, what constitutes Riot, and then you're going to tell you, oh, it has to be a captain or above to tell you can enforce that. No, I mean, that's lunacy in itself. I mean, you know, that's why it's out of control. You know, that's why people are down there, because they don't fear any prosecution, they don't fear any arrest. I often think that they're getting paid, they're getting supplemented some way, and even if they get arrested, I've seen them where they've been arrested, and one of their BS attorneys run over, what's your name? Give me your name, because they want to make sure that they document it. And my only thing is either they're going to provide them with a legal representation, or they're going to provide them with some sort of compensation for getting arrested, doing this step above normally what you wouldn't do. So I mean, it needs to be taken care of. It needs to be terminated at the top. You can get all these low hanging fruits, but until you get to the top, it's going to always continue, because the low hanging fruits are just going to continually take turns and bring in more people, etc. So it's what we need to do is let's stop the real problem. Just like with any drug cartel, right? You could get all the street drug dealers, and that's good. You stop it for a little while, but I mean, I was in SNU, the Street Narcotics Enforcement Unit. You lock somebody up, the next day somebody's on the same set. They're back there again. What did you do? Yeah, I collared somebody for sale, and I got a couple buyers, but until you get the top who's supplying that, it's not going to end.
What else did you do when you made those arrests? You debriefed.
Yeah, absolutely.
You debriefed. The narcotic investors debriefed, right? Or you had the squad do a debrief if it's a precinct caller or intel, right? Your field intelligence officer or the assistant field intelligence officers, right? Somebody like Marlon Bethel would come out or would do some type of investigation and looking into this, and you could follow the trail. Follow the trail of money. Who is supplying the money? That's the big question, right? We know that the DAs are, Soros funded, right?
Right.
And so we know where that money's coming from, by following the campaign money. It wouldn't be hard if we actually did charge them properly, threaten them with appropriate jail time. Because I'm sorry, throwing cinder blocks at a moving police vehicle is attempted murder.
Absolutely.
That brick goes through the window.
Mm-hmm.
You drop a brick from an overpass onto a civilian's car. Tell me what you're getting charged with.
Yeah, of course.
Right? But you do it to the police, and
it's okay.
The police are vilified if they try and take enforcement action against those people.
No, it's okay activity. Just you can burn your car and throw bricks, and it's okay, because nobody got.
We had some pictures of what was going on last night. We don't want to keep putting up a million videos. We did a ton of videos today. We're about 2 hours into it. Don't forget to hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe. But this is last night, SRG, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually, who is that?
I don't know. That's
Crowd Enforcement Unit. Okay, so that's SRG, right? Making arrests last night. And there's other ones where they're violently resisting. And there's videos all over the place. And anybody that opens up your phone, has any kind of social media, you're going to see all these videos of people that are being placed under arrest. And then you have 4 or 5 people grabbing. There, look, actively resisting arrest.
Yeah.
And resisting arrest and obstructing governmental administration, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pulling her away, trying to stop her from being arrested. That's
Yeah.
OGA. This cop on the left should be grabbing the one with the black face mask.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's OGA. That's obstructing governmental administration and resisting arrest by allowing that to go on, that's what we need to stop, because they think it's okay. You know, chant, let them go, let them go, let them go. Let them go. Yeah, they got to go. They got to go downtown and they got to stay there. That's the problem. That's the problem, is that they're not. If they're being processed with more than a summons, they're getting a DAT, which is also a summons after they do the fingerprints, right? Then you get a summons to be released for a court date further down the line. So nobody's debriefing these people in a true sense in trying to find the nexus of where all these people are coming from, right? Those people aren't coming out of Bushwick.
No.
And those people aren't coming out of the Lower East Side. Those people are not from New York City, a vast majority of them. They're being brought here. They're being paid to come here. I see it all the time, and you don't know what's true. You don't know what's not true, but you see a lot of times those ads posted online from people that say that they're being solicited. They're going to get $150 a day. They're going to get $1,500 a week. They're going to do this, do that. Be ready to be arrested. Be ready for this. Be ready. We only want true fighters and all this other stuff. There's no way that's not true, because you see these paid agitators at every different protest, no matter what it is. What are they really protesting? Are they really protesting ICE, or is it just civil disobedience?
Do they even know what they're protesting? That's the problem. They
I love when they ask them those questions, when they start asking.
they're brought in.
You know,
Listen, we used to get a breakdown from SRG on where they were from. They a lot from New Jersey, and then states across the country. They were all brought in. So they didn't care. They were just looking to get whatever money or whatever, do whatever they could. So it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So now it's escalating, right? It started yesterday down at Federal Plaza, and then they had the march onto the Holland Tunnel. Again, 1,000% that was premeditated.
Oh yeah.
And organized, right? Then you have they start violently resisting the police, as we showed. And so what does Tish come out and say now? There's no need for the National Guard in New York City, which I'm not in disagreement with, if you allow the police to do their job, but you have to also back up, right? The NYPD will stand its ground and not let anti-ICE protests get out of control in the Big Apple. Right. I get that. That was published today, right?
Yes.
And I see that they're trying to do that. They are taking enforcement action. They made 84 arrests on the first night, right? But now today, again, you have protests that are getting out of control. And the cops are going to get hurt. The cops are going to take action. And then are these tough words from our mayor and police commissioner going to be followed up with appropriate actions when these cops do their job, stop these violent protesters, which utilizing the necessary force. And then the poor protester feels like they were abused, and that the police abused their authority and used excessive uses of force. And they file a CCRB and they file the lawsuit. Like you said, the lawyer gets their name so they can add them to the lawsuit, right? And then the city settles, or the city doesn't back these cops up for going out there and doing what you told them to do and what they needed to do to repel an invasion, which is what's going on. New York City is going to be invaded this weekend, and the repelling force is the NYPD, led by the SRG, right?
Yeah.
So
No,
we don't need the National Guard. She's warning the anti-ICE protesters that we're not going to put up with this. But are they going to back it up? Because she has shown that she has been stricter with discipline. She has made statements that she is going to expedite the CCRB cases that they can't adjudicate in a timely enough manner to leave the NYPD proper time to investigate prior to prosecution when they recommend charges. Instead of letting the case go, they're going to expedite some BS short-term investigation. What's going to happen when they get overwhelmed with CCRBs from this new 2025 Summer of Love 2.0, as I like to call it?
Well, the thing is the implications of the CCRB are going to be felt later on in these poor guys and gals' careers, right? When they go somewhere. I mean, there may be some compassion if they said, "Oh, I got all of these at the riots of 25," but are they on force monitoring? Are they taken out of particular assignments because of their things? I mean, there's going to be implications, and unfortunately, like we've said all along, the biggest implications are when they leave the job. They're going to see the people that don't understand it, like you and I. If we were doing an interview, we could understand it. The people that don't understand it are going to say, "Wow, you were part of this major lawsuit. You were also got so many civilian complaints. I mean, why would I even hire you for anything, even as a security guard? Obviously, you have a problem, And then with Tish, stating that we don't need a National Guard. Okay, we have 33,000 police officers. I mean, I would hope that you don't need the National Guard, but you're gonna eventually, if this sustains these demonstrations and these riots, you will need people to backfill you, because eventually you drain the police officers so much you're of no use. So what is the big deal to activate the National Guard, bring them down, put them on Floyd Bennett Field, and have them as a backup just in case. It doesn't hurt anything. You see what's going on in California where they got overwhelmed. So there's always a case that it could happen here in New York City. Don't push it out like, oh, we're better than everybody else, or we don't need this, or we're not going to do this. I wouldn't even have said that if I was her. I would have said, hey, if we need additional, we maybe mutual aid, which I don't recall the NYPD even having anything. I'm not familiar with anything, but activating the National Guard. I mean, there's no fault in doing that, because it's a force multiplier, and eventually, and then you could also real quick, then you could also effectively arrest a people. Usually SRG was one officer to 5 arrestees. So you could get absorbed quickly when that happens if you have those very, very large groups. So if you need to do that, if you have a major amount of people that you're going to arrest, you can do that and absorb that, and then you have the National Guard as backup. So there's always that possibility. I don't think she should have just completely stated that they're not going to do that. You kind of put yourself behind the 8 ball.
And not for anything, is it even her place to say anything? She, as the police commissioner, can make a recommendation to the mayor that we may become overwhelmed, because it's not only just like you said. It gets to a point of exhaustion because the officers are working so many hours, and they're making collars, and they got to process through the system and everything else. And they're out there, and these are not just long hours; they're long, hard hours on your feet, and standing tall, and getting busy when you have to get busy, and getting physical when you have to get physical. Because, like we've always said, police work doesn't always look pretty on video, right? And it doesn't look, and it isn't pretty sometimes when you have to put your hands on people, and then you have 10 other people trying to rip the perpetrator away from you, right? So the mayor is really the one who would request from the governor,
right,
the activation, right? She activated the guard, like you said earlier in the show, to go down into the transit stations as a force multiplier in transit to reduce the transit crime, because the transit crimes went up from 4 to 6 a day in the subway system. Those are the reported numbers, and we know that those numbers aren't 100% accurate, but crime in the subway system went up a little bit, and then we see the National Guard standing on the platforms. But yet, when we have civil disobedience, why don't we see them? Right? At least, like, even when you see them, sometimes they're out at the bridges and tunnels, right? For counterterrorism operations. Why wouldn't you activate them in a limited capacity to at least protect your infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be a
Yeah,
force multiplier at the infrastructure. I know the MTA police are taking over the bridges and tunnels, but right now, I mean, you have the Port Authority police at the Holland and Lincoln, right? The George Washington Bridge and the other bridges in the outer boroughs that they're not going to be protesting on, right?
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you at least call them in to be, force multipliers at your structures like that?
It doesn't hurt to have them, right? It doesn't hurt to have them, deploy them, and use them. And you know what? You can give your officers the appropriate rest that they need so that they can conduct the operations that are necessary. So it doesn't hurt.
And let me ask you this, because we're just over 2 hours. So and we had Jim on today, so he took a chunk of the show. And this is an important topic because, and like everybody's saying, it's not over. We're gonna have plenty. John and Eric will be talking about it on Monday, and I'm sure we'll be touching on it again next Wednesday. Because unfortunately, I'm not confident that we're not going to have newsworthy events over the weekend. To put it lightly. But now, let me ask you this. We talk about Eric Adams, pre-indictment, Eric Adams, post-indictment, right? And how he's now in line with, President Trump, since President Trump had them, his DOJ dropped the charges and, now he wants to work with, he's going to work with ICE and let his chief of staff sign off on ICE going back into Rikers Island and whatnot. If it pops off really bad, how long do you think it'll be before Eric Adams comes out publicly to support the possibility of bringing in, of requesting from Hochul to bring in the National Guard or supporting President Trump if he federalizes New York State National Guard?
Oh yeah, I think as soon as he has the opportunity, he's going to do that because he's gonna try to get the endorsement of Trump or whatever. I mean, he's right in. He allegedly is in Trump's corner, and I don't think he wants to go against them. And even if Trump brought in the National Guard under his authority and protected federal buildings, I don't see him like Bass complaining about it. I would see Adams saying it's good. I could see Hochul complaining about it and saying, hey, this is not what I wanted. But Adams isn't going to go against the gravy train that he's gotten right now. He's gotten that free ride, and there's no way he's going to go against anything that Trump does. He's basically playing right into what Trump's hand. So I don't see that happening at all. I mean, I don't see him going against Trump at all.
Yeah, because that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that is he going to play it both ways and leave it on Hochul and stay quiet? Or is he going to speak out like Bass, saying that he was against it? Is he going to speak out saying that it's, I mean, listen, I hope it doesn't get to the point where we need them because the NYPD is the largest police department in the nation. I think was the most well-trained. I think that we do have the best disorder control unit in the SRG in the country. I don't think that's changed with a lot of the other changes that's gone on in this country. I think that the leadership of the SRG and the members of the SRG are still top notch. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I think
as they fell to you.
I mean, yeah, SRG, they're on the money. I was on the front lines with them during the George Floyd riot, and when they needed to do what they were asked to do, they did it without hesitation. And I was extremely proud of them. And just everything that they've done, I can't speak more highly about them. I think they are the best in the country. That's the reason why they go around the country and tell people. I mean, you look at Anthony Raganella, who was previously in disorder control. He's throughout the country teaching the tactics that are employed by the NYPD. So I mean, they've only continued under Johnny Diadamo and Steve Hughes before him. they've done a great job, and they are a great unit, a great force multiplier, and they know what they're doing. They are the experts in crowd control. They're the experts in force protection for ESU. So I mean, those are the people that you want. And the problem is those stupid laws and the stupid agreements have pushed them behind the 8 ball. And now we'll see what happens now when they're needed. Are they going to be able to do their job appropriately without any any criticism or anything else? That's the question. And I hope that the police officers that are on the front line that don't have the expertise that SRG has don't get hurt. They really have to. You have to protect yourselves. And I'll say this right now: you have to work cohesively as a group. Don't take any independent actions, especially against the group. You see how they're pulling people and they're grabbing the perpetrator, other arm, pulling away from you and pushing you. So don't take, in my opinion, don't take any independent actions. Take it as a group, and do it professionally as you can in that situation. And you may have to use force, but that's what you have to do. That's part of the game. Like you said, it's not always, police work's not always pretty, right? So
yeah, I'm going to end it. My final thoughts on this is that the settlement agreement hamstrung the NYPD because they allowed them to be hamstrung. First of all, they agreed to it, right? It was a settlement agreement, but the way it's written, it's really at the discretion of the incident commander, right? That's designated by the chief of department to make that determination of when they could move in with SRG in the different phases, right? There's 4 phases, and you're not allowed to bring in SRG until phase 3. And that's when things start to get a little bit violent and a little bit out of hand, right? But if you have incident commanders that have the balls to call what's going on, a phase 3 incident under the settlement agreement, get them in early. The earlier that you can get the experts in. I'm not saying that I'm not saying anything against the patrol cops that are called in first, that are mobilized in the mobile field forces, the people on their overtime, the guys from the detective squad and everything else. That's not what we did. I mean, I did it when I was the CO of the task force, because we were the old SRG before, SRG was a thing. We were the borough task force, and I was the CO of the task force unit. And we used to practice, the disorder control, the lines, the wedges, all that stuff. The arrest tactics on, like you said, a team. You open up, you grab, you pull them back behind the line. All these things. Get them in early to take effective actions. And the last thing I'm going to say is, please, everybody that's out there, be safe. Not just this weekend, but every day. It's ugly. These people are not out there for their First Amendment activities. Some are, and they get caught up in it. Treat people with respect. Like we said, you fight when you have to fight. The fight is over when the fight is over. You take the appropriate actions to preserve life and property for yourself, for your partners. And do what you have to do, and just really, really be safe. And like you said, Rob, work as a unit. Don't work independently. Don't chase after them. If they're running away, unless it's like unless they just hit you or somebody with a rock or something like that, and if they're just running their mouth and some innocuous thing or whatever, through some water, don't chase them. Don't chase them, because you could be running into a trap, right? So like you said, work as a unit, stay safe, keep yourself safe, keep your partners safe, keep the city safe. God bless everybody out there. And what do you got to close it out, Rob?
No, just real quick, for any incident commanders, like you said, get them in quick. Don't be afraid to utilize aviation. We used to have dedicated ships. Watch the high ground. You saw what happened in LA. Okay, the high ground is important. If aviation's not up or they're not capable, make sure you have somebody watching the rooftops, right? You also make sure that somebody's always looking up, right? Because we've had incidences where things have been thrown off the roof, airmail, as we used to call it.
Yep.
So you could seriously get hurt that way. You saw that. Thank God that LAPD officer or the highway patrol officer had a helmet on. Again, that's another important thing. You're given equipment. Make sure equipment works, is operable, and that it's worn and you use it. So just my closing to everybody is thanks for being on today. Appreciate everybody. Sorry I didn't get to a lot of comments, but we had a lot of text and information to get out. And just really be safe out there, because we care about you. We want you to survive and get your pension and enjoy your life afterwards. But you gotta get through this now, and you really need to protect yourselves and protect your partners and everybody. So just be careful.
Yep, and
Ron?
thank you to Jim Walden for coming on today and explaining that plan, the Citywide Department of Public Integrity once again. And again, whoever you're going to vote for, get out and vote. Whoever your opponent, whoever your candidate is that you think is going to lead us here in New York to a better path than we're currently on, which is much well needed. Tomorrow, 1:05, we have the Sal Greco show, and then Friday you'll have the roundtable with Eric, John, and probably Marlon, and they'll be talking about the week's events, which obviously is going to be a continuation of this, plus whatever else is going on in the city. And then we'll be back again next Wednesday at 5:05 p.m. for the Executive Perspective. Be safe, everyone.
Be safe.